Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head up to Ellon in Aberdeenshire, which many of you will know is the home of Brewdog, and we're going to do the first of a series of 4 Brewdog beers. So this time we're going to have a look at the Russian Doll series, which is one of their experimental 4-packs that they release every so often. Of course they've done the IPA is Dead and the Unleash the Yeast before, which showed you how single hops can affect the flavour of a same IPA, and the Unleash the Yeast showed you how the yeast affected the base wort. But now for the Russian Dolls, what they're doing is experimenting, having the same base beers essentially, but changing the hops to malt ratio and showing you how this can drastically change the style of beer. And the whole idea behind these experimental 4-packs really is to teach the beer drinker exactly what variables can come into play and change your beer flavour. So it's very cool that Brewdog actually do this. So anyway, as is usual for my beer reviews then, I'll take you through a very brief history of the brewery. It will only be a minute or two long, but if you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. The brewery website's in the video description for you below, along with a link to my other reviews that I've done from Brewdog before, and I will add to that in the near future, I'm sure, because I've got quite a few Brewdog beers to go through for you over the next while. But anyway, Brewdog were founded by James Watt and Martin Dickey back in 2007, and their very first brewery was a small one in the Keswick Industrial Estate in Fraserburgh in the very northeast corner of Scotland. But more recently they've moved their main brewing operations to their new purpose-built facility at Ellon, and that place really is quite impressive and pretty huge actually. But they're known for being a very experimental brewery, and particularly for their strong beers as well, and they're largely inspired by the whole American craft brewing renaissance. The guys there do say that their favourite brewery is actually Stone, which is one of the most well-known ones from the States. But they've actually got several brew pubs throughout the UK. This started in 2009 with their one in Aberdeen. In 2010 they expanded further south into Scotland, and since then they've expanded all throughout England. Pretty much every major city in England has a Brewdog bar now, and they've got various foreign ones, like for example in Florence in Italy. I think there's one in Rome as well these days. They've got Barcelona, they've got 2 in Sweden, 1 in Japan, 1 in Brazil, and they're expanding all the time, so keep an eye out for a Brewdog bar popping up near you. But more recently they've actually been doing their Equity for Punk scheme again, and what's really cool about Brewdog is that a lot of their infrastructure advancements have been crowdfunded. So you buy shares in the brewery and you get a lifetime discount in the shop and in the bars and things like that, and they use that money that you invest in the company to fund more tanks and new sheds and things like that at the brewery. So very, very cool in that way. And the latest announcement that Brewdog have done in this regard is that they are going to open up a new brewery in Columbus, Ohio. So the Americans will be getting a lot more Brewdog beer, I'm sure, and it takes away some of the problems of logistics that they have. So you'll probably see further expansion down into South America now that they have this American base as well. So very, very cool company actually, and yeah, definitely one you want to check out if you haven't tried it before. But they're the largest independently owned Scottish craft brewery these days. But anyway, that's your kind of brief history of Brewdog. So to tell you a little bit more about the Russian Doll series before we crack into it. So the Russian Doll series is the latest in the series of Brewdog experimental beers, and these, as I told you, are designed to teach beer drinkers about the different aspects and different variables in the brewing process. So obviously they have their IPA is Dead series, and these are single hop IPAs which all have the same base beer, but they're just basically blasted with all different hops. They also had their Unleash the Yeast series, which tested the use of different yeast strains on top of identical base worts, and this could actually dramatically change the style of beer. They had Weizens, Pilsens, and all of this sort of thing in that one. That was quite a good and interesting series actually. But they also have the Paradox Imperial Stout beers, and this is where they age the same Imperial Stout in various different whiskey casks, and this is to show how the different woods and different whiskies can also affect the aging process, and how this is another variable in beer. But the Russian Dolls are actually a little bit different. So all 4 beers have the same 4 hop varieties, and they've got the same malt bill and identical water and yeast. And in this series, as I told you, they're altering the ratios and volumes of malt to hops in order to produce 4 different styles of beer. So in this one you've got a pale ale, starting from the weakest to the strongest. You've got the pale ale, the IPA, the double IPA, and the barley wine. And all of these beers are hopped with Simcoe, Centennial, Cascade and Citra, all American hops, and the malt bill consists of pale, dark crystal and caramels. And in the lower end of the beers, the pale malts provide most of the sugars, and well, in all four they produce most of the sugars. However, the thing that they're altering is the dark crystal and caramels, and what they're saying is that they've used these far more heavily in the double IPA and the barley wine than in the IPA and the pale ale. So obviously your pale ale is the weakest, the IPA is the next one, then you've got the double IPA, and then the barley wine. So the idea is that they're going from weakest to strongest. So that's the reason I've decided to start with the pale ale in this series of 4 reviews that I'm doing for you. But anyway, I hope that explains quite well what this series is all about. But before we crack into it, I'll just let you have a quick look at the artwork there. So all of these have various kind of it's almost a little bit, these artwork on this one actually look a little bit more like the kind of McKellar artwork, if I'm honest. But yeah, they're all different kind of faces on them. They're all different colours as well, but they come in a 4-box set. But you can see there's the Brewdog symbol there, and on the side it says Russian Doll Pale Ale, 4 beers, 4 styles, 1 DNA. We've taken the natural progression of 4 of our favourite styles and lined them up like a Matryoshka doll to create a series of beers, each one stronger and more intense than the last. Beers with this different brewed from the same malts and hops make you question the big things in life. What is my natural essence? What is it that makes me me? And if I could peel my own face off and look inside, would I find a more punchier, more intense version of me starting back? Welcome to our Russian doll. Just don't try to put the bottle inside each other. These are clever beers for clever humans. And it tells you a little bit on about Brewdog at the side. So yeah, let's get stuck into this one. So this is the pale ale. This one comes in at 4%. Like I told you, it's got a malt bill of pale, dark crystal and caramels, and it's hopped with Citra, Centennial, Cascade and Simcoe hops, which I believe are all American ones. So without further ado, let's get stuck into this guy and we'll get on with the tasting here. So it's standard Brewdog bottle cap on this one, by the way. And that is of course the old bottle cap, because these were released last year in 2014. And I've got a new Brewdog glass as well, as you can probably see. This is going to have a lot of head on it, but this is only a half pint glass, so I'm not going to be able to pour the full thing, unfortunately. I'll just let it settle a little bit and we can have a quick look at the colour of this one. So if I bring the light up there, you can see it's poured like a typical pale ale. You can really smell the fruits off this actually, and a little bit of the caramel without even paying too much attention. But as you can see, it's a nice kind of clear goldeny amber colour. Comes out really nice. There's a lot of carbonation visible in this one actually, and maybe that's just because I've had it sitting for a while. As I say, I bought this beer before I left for Australia last year, I'm sure, and I had just never got round to reviewing it before I left. But it looks very nice, bright orangey amber colour. It is transparent, slightly hazy. You can see the light through the camera there, but it looks a very nice beer. There was about a 2, maybe 3 finger frothy white head on it. It is a little bit bumpy as you get more towards the surface, but it looks a very, very nice beer indeed. So let's just put a little bit more out of this and we'll have a look at the aroma. There's a bit of sediment kind of floating around in this one as well actually. But yeah, looks very good. So in terms of the aroma with this one, it's got that typical kind of nice brewdoggy hop smell to it actually. It does actually smell a little bit like punk IPA, if I'm honest. So you've got a nice little bit, there's quite a bit of citrusy orange coming out of this one, and there is the tropical fruits too. So it's peach and passion fruit, I think, and that's from the Citra hop actually. It's more of a peachy and passion fruity one. You can pick up a little bit of grapefruit, but it's more the kind of lighter tropical and slightly sharper notes from peaches and passion fruit, I would say. But there's a little bit of grassy and aromatic coming out of this one as well. Grassy and aromatic hops, and that's most likely the Centennial. Not so much pine resin. Usually with the Centennial you get a bit of pine resin as well. Simcoe, if I remember right, gives you a bit of a grapefruity note. But yeah, Citra, Centennial and Cascade hops. Cascade's quite grapefruity as well from what I remember, and it can give you some oranges too. But yeah, you're getting some nice citrusy oranges, some I really think peaches and passion fruit in this one. There is a little bit of grapefruit in there too. You can pick up the more sour notes. Actually smells like quite a dusty hop, this one, but there is a definite grassy and slightly aromatic-y presence to this too. But there's a bit of nice kind of bready and slightly caramelly or biscuity malts underneath. So it has everything you would expect of the pale ale style. So smells like a very nice beer. So I guess the only thing to do now is to get stuck in. So this is the pale ale in the Russian Doll series from Brewdog in Aberdeenshire in Scotland. Slàinte. quite nice actually. It's a lot more malt forward than you would think from the aroma actually. The malt is quite prominent, but just let your mouth adjust to it before you get properly start picking out the flavours of this one. But yeah, like many of Brewdog's beers, it is quite hop forward, but the malt does have a good presence in this too. There are other regular pale ales that I've had, the malt tends to take a bit of a back step, but it is a bit more prominent in this one in comparison with other Brewdog pale ales. So yeah, first other thing I'm noticing is the carbonation's quite active, and that makes the beer quite dry and hoppy. It is more like an IPA than a pale ale in my opinion, but I don't know, it actually reminds me a lot of the Punk IPA, but the fruitiness doesn't linger so much, and it's not quite as juicy, if that makes sense. So I guess when it's more of a malt forward one, that does make it a pale ale rather than an IPA, but we'll see the difference with the next one in the series. I'll do the IPA next. But yeah, with this one, you've got a nice hoppy character coming out. I would say it's actually more leaning towards the kind of citrusy, grassy and aromatic hops. Those are around the edge of the tongue there. It's quite nice orangey citrus around the front of the palate there, just as you move towards the back of the tongue, and then you've got the grassy and aromatic character right around the edges of the palate there. The middle of the palate is a kind of light pale malt flavour that you're getting out of this, but there's a good kind of sort of biscuity, caramelly malt that goes just on the top of that. So it's quite interesting, this beer. It makes you think a little bit more about it, and I always do that with these experimental ones simply because that's the idea. They're intended to teach the beer drinker about the different variables in brewing beer. But yeah, once your mouth adjusts to it, it does actually become just a little bit more juicy. But as I say, it's a nice orangey, citrusy flavour that's at the front of the tongue, and then it's grassy and aromatic hops around the edges, and that fades a little bit as you go towards the back of the tongue. You can pick up a little bit of a grapefruity flavour underlying there too, and the peaches and passion fruit are quite in the background. It's more, the grapefruit flavour really comes out a bit more in the flavour, but you can just detect that peachy and passion fruit flavour that you would expect from the citra hop. Yeah. And as the beer gets a little bit juicy as you go into the aftertaste, you can really detect the kind of caramel and biscuity flavour that just goes right down the middle of that tongue. It's more of a caramel than a biscuit. It's not very grainy, but it's a pale malt base in this one that just blankets the middle of that palate, and you've got some nice kind of caramelly and slightly biscuity malty sweetness in on top of that. It's really quite nicely done actually, and it is, the malt, as I say, in comparison to their other pale ales, it is quite a bit more prominent in this than it is in some of the other ones. But in terms of the mouthfeel of this one, I would say it's actually quite light to mid-bodied, and the carbonation is quite active on this, but it helps bring out the hoppy components of the beer a little bit more. It's a little bit oily in the mouthfeel too, and there is a kind of nice mild malty sweetness, some character as well, but it is mainly, as you would expect from Brewdog, it is more of a hop forward beer, but they'll get more malty as we progress up the series. The IPA, I'm sure, will be quite hoppy as well, but then once we move into the double IPA and the barley wine, that's when the malts will start to really be very punchy. But overall, this is actually quite a nice pale ale, this beer. It's a shame that it's only a one-off brew, because I'd say that's probably the best pale ale that I've actually tried from Brewdog. The malt, as I say, is a little bit more prominent, and that's what you expect from a pale ale, but Brewdog really do like to use their hops. So yeah, this has been another interesting one to review for us, and as they said in the start, the pale malt does become a bit more prominent in the first two beers, so you can definitely pick that up in this one. There's only a little bit of the kind of caramel and malty sweetness that you would normally expect from this style, but it's, the whole malt base is a bit more prominent than in some of the other pale ales. So overall, a very, very nice pale ale. It's a shame it's only a one-off brew, because I do think it is the best pale ale that I've had from Brewdog when I think back on it. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Please let me know in the comment section your own thoughts on this beer below if you do happen to have tried it. The next one I'll review in this series will be the IPA, and I will review the other two a bit later on. But I hope you enjoy this Russian Doll series. Always enjoy doing the experimental ones from Brewdog. So comment below, like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, and until my next review, I'll catch you then. Cheers.